Hi, welcome on back to Custom Works today. I'm glad you stopped in. I'm your host, Clint Allen. Today we're going to debunk the final mystery, the question, should we not change our high pressure oil pump oil in the reserve on the 7.3 Powerstroke. We've got millions of videos out there saying that yes, we should. This is how you do it. I'm going to break down the reason why you don't need to do it, why you're wasting your time, while you're wasting your effort. And not only on top of that, we've got the motor here, we've got the flow diagrams here, everything that you need to know about 7.3 and how that oil flows through the motor and how it flows through the hop. We're going to break it down for you today, so stick around. Well, hi, thanks for sticking around. Well, this 7.3 changing your oil in your high pressure oil pump reservoir is just something that has gotten worse than politics. There is so many proponents, there are so many people against. I'm going to show you today without a doubt that there is no reason to change your oil in your high pressure oil pump. Definitive, 100% proof. So let's get going with it. But I'm going to take a short run here on a question that came through several times from a subscriber. He had asked how we treat our rust on frames on our vehicles that we completely overhaul and redo. So stick around for the 7.3 information here. This is just going to be a couple minutes. I made this up right here. This is just a piece of angle iron, old angle iron, and gave you an idea that if this is the frame of the vehicle, this is where you would go through and use a wire brush and brush off the rust. And then this right here is really what you want to do, just get right back down to the metal. But the point is that you can't take a can and spray it on this and expect it to stop the rust. It's not going to happen. It's going to look pretty for, a couple months, and the rust is just going to break its way through. That's a chemical reaction that's happening on the metal, and the only way to get it off is to completely grind off the rust. I would then go through, and what we do is we use Ospo, and we treat it with that first. Then we go through, and then we finally put our epoxy coating on it after we have completely gone through and wiped off all the metal with a lacquer thinner and completely do a prep with paint prep type of chemical. And then we spray epoxy on it, and then we first go through and put a overcoating, like a truck bed coating basically is what we use, and that stops this stuff dead in its tracks. So anyways, to Randy, who asked multiple times, that's how we do it, and that's the reason why we don't do what we do, and what we do, why we do it. So let's move on to why you're here, and we're going to show you the reason why, and very specifically why. We're going to be putting up diagrams, so just go ahead and pause the video when those diagrams come up. Take a very close look at the flow of the oil. But let me break. If you haven't already gone through and subscribed, if you like this type of content, go ahead, smash that subscribe button, throw in a comment. We're trying to get more and more subscriptions, more and more comments, and the only way that we can do that is if you slap them in the old YouTube video comment area, and it helps the channel grow. You have no idea. YouTube watches this, obviously, via through their computer system or their algorithm or whatever the heck you want to call it, but it really helps. I'm not doing this for a buck. I'm doing this to help people out, help people save money, and the only way that I can get in front of people like you is either subscribing, putting comments, hitting that like button. That's going to tell YouTube saying, hey, this guy's worth watching, and they're going to put me out in front more. People like you can get this type of information. And let's face it, if you've gone through YouTube and you've looked at the videos of changing your oil for your high pressure oil pump, you know, there's a lot of guys out there that, you know, kind of shoot videos, you know, haphazardly and kind of give a reason here and a reason why. And, you know, after watching this video from start to end, you're going to see that the content is of high quality. So let's get rolling with this. We're lucky that we have a 7.3 that is broken down here, and how this system works is we have a oil pickup that sits in the oil pan, and this brings oil up to this front timing cover right here. Then what we have is the low pressure oil pump, and this is taking the oil from the pan from that pickup with the housing attached to the timing cover and through these gears. Compressing that oil as she oblongs on a elliptical run through the motor, crushing the oil, and inevitably shooting it up through here. That's the only thing that's happening with the oil in this section right here. The oil does not pass up through this timing cover to the top. The only job of the timing cover as far as the oil goes is to shoot it out through the side here. When it passes out through the side, it goes through this monster right here, and this is a oil cooler. So that sits on the side of the motor. The oil enters right here, goes through the tube where radiator fluid is being pumped through to cool that oil down. Then it passes through the oil filter, and then it heads into the motor. Once it passes into the motor, the turbocharger is being fed. The little oil squirters that shoot oil from the underside of the cylinder up to the piston get fed. All the channels get fed inside of the motor, and we're going to put up one of the diagrams right now. And as you can see from that diagram, that you follow the arrows and it shows you the flow through the motor, and we end up getting motor oil fed into the lower part of this timing cover, and from there the real story begins on how this oil gets exchanged. And let me take this cover off right here. This is the top cover for your high pressure oil pump reserve tank. Now this right here is nothing more than an inspection plug. It's not meant to be ram jamming pieces of plastic or chunks of metal tubes down on in there. It is not what that is designed to do. It's only designed to take the plug out if you're having a issue with the truck or the high pressure oil pump or a leak internally, to look inside, and that oil should be almost right at the top. You should be able to see it. If you don't see the oil inside this inspection hole, you do have an issue that needs to be attended to. Might not be something that's happening right now that you're noticing, but I can assure you, if this is low, you're going to be sitting on the side of the road pretty soon. From there, we have the reserve tank. And all this is doing is holding a reserve of oil in here. The oil that's being fed to the high pressure oil pump and also receiving from the motor is happening in that area right there. We have the high pressure oil pump attached here, and we're not going to worry about that for the moment. But inside here, where I just removed the reserve tank, we have a filter for whom and which, when that oil is being pumped into the motor area, specifically into this timing cover, that oil comes up right through this hole right here. That is filling this tank. And she continues to come up right here, just short of the top of this, where the cover keeps the oil inside, because if you would not have that o-ring gasket on here, or you wouldn't have the plug reinstalled, she's gonna shoot oil up through the top of the motor or your top of your hood or whatever the case may be. And keep in mind, when you see videos or technical information on the high pressure oil pump that, you know, she can push thousands of PSI to the injectors, that's not happening in that reserve tank. That reserve tank is just getting pressure from the low pressure oil pump. It is not pushing out 3,000 PSI, otherwise you'd blow the gasket right out of it. I mean, it's just like a hydraulic, that, you know, this would never hold that. So just to clear that up right now, that tank is at full throttle, not pushing out thousands of PSI. You'd just blow the casing right apart or through the seals. But you're saying, why, what, how come you're saying that you don't need to change this oil? Well, let me bring you in. Let me get this off of here. And this is where the real secret of this actually is, of why you don't need to change your oil in this oil reserve for the high pressure oil pump on your 7.3. From the oil filter up into the motor, remember that's where the oil is flowing. This right here is where that oil comes in to this timing cover right here. Just that little area right there. And let me get this up real up close and personal with you. All right, we're gonna get real up close and personal here. And don't worry, I don't smell. I don't have bad breath either. So inside here, the lowest point of the high pressure oil pump reserve, and I'm going to put the filter back in there, and then we're going to get to the final point. So there's the filter, that's where it goes. Remember, we had stacked on top of this the reserve tank, then we had the cover. So let me take that out. Everybody's under the belief that oil sits inside this and does not get exchanged. So wait for it. Are you getting that? Do you see that coming through there? That hole for the oil flow is on the bottom. Let's try that again. So right there, you can see the brush moving in and out. That hole is at the bottom of this reserve tank. Oil is always being transferred through this. Now let me show you where it goes. We take our high pressure oil pump, and you can see that on the bottom see those holes? One of them sort of bolt that actually holds it to the casing, but we go ahead put her in there. That pump is taking that oil, constantly taking that oil, constantly taking the oil, constantly taking the oil, constantly taking the oil, and running it through into the heads. And there is a bypass that sits on the opposite side. Sits on the opposite side, and that flows oil also. So this is constantly being changed. As soon as you change your oil, start your truck up, run it down the road. We're just talking a few miles, that oil has already been exchanged. Now, for the proponents, you know, if you're going to go through and change that oil, you know, for the little bit of oil that is actually in here, then why don't you just crack the heads and drain the oil out of there? There's a lot more oil sitting in those heads that are leading to the injectors of all that oil, all that crappy oil that's sitting in there. Go ahead and change that too. Well, I'm being facetious. The point is that you do not need to change the oil in this high pressure oil pump reserve tank. If you buy a 7.3, I would go through and remove the timing, or not the timing cover, but the top cover that I initially showed you in the beginning. and then go ahead and remove the reserve tank, pull out that filter, just buy yourself 2 gaskets. They're cheap, very easy to reinstall, and take a look down inside. Now, I know for a fact that the reason why this gunk builds up possibly in the bottom is because people don't change their oil. Now, I have 2 7.3s, one with over 550,000 miles on it, one with over 860,000 miles on it. I've never changed it. I've never had oil leaks. I've never had O-ring failures. I've never had any type of leak that I needed to go and replace a O-ring. Why? Because I install new oil every 5,000 miles or less. Now, I don't care what's on the can. I don't care what the manufacturer says. I don't care what absolutely fantastic idea that they have about changing your oil every 20 or 30,000 miles. If you do that, you're absolutely idiotic, stupid. Change your oil on a 7.3 every 5,000 miles or less, and you will not have all these problems that these guys have with their 7.3s. And if you stop beating the bejesus out of it, you'll eliminate a lot of problems also. So there you have it. There it is. We're going to put up 2 more diagrams as this closes out here and show you how the oil passes through the high pressure oil pump, and enjoy that. And until I see you again, you take it easy and you have a good day.
And paying for it, okay? All your money will have been wasted if I don't get Luke here in good health.
She's gonna be okay.
You're still here yet? It's over. Oh, I know. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell, and that'll tell you when our next video comes up. Until then, go home.